Just keep going, just keep going up, just keep going, just keep going up. You can't turn back, you come too far, you can't give up, you work too hard. Just keep going, just keep going up, just keep going, just keep going up. You can't turn back, you come too far, you can't give up, you work too hard.
Hello and welcome back to Dissertation in 90 Days, the podcast dedicated to supporting you through every stage of your dissertation journey. I'm Dr. J, your guide as you work toward completing your doctoral research. Today, we're tackling a topic that's crucial for any academic pursuing publication, navigating the peer review process. The peer review process can be daunting, especially if it's your first time submitting a paper for publication. It's a process that is both rigorous and necessary, ensuring that only high-quality research makes its way into academic journals. Understanding how the peer review process works, what reviewers are looking for, and how to respond to feedback can make a significant difference in your academic career. In this episode, we'll walk through each step of the peer review process, discuss strategies for handling reviewer comments, and offer tips on how to increase your chances of getting published. Whether you're preparing to submit your dissertation research or just looking to improve your publication prospects, this episode is packed with insights to help you succeed. Let's get started. Let's start by breaking down what the peer review process actually entails. When you submit a paper to an academic journal, the editors will first do an initial screening. They'll check that your paper fits within the scope of the journal and that it meets basic quality standards. If your paper passes this initial screening, it will then be sent out to a panel of reviewers who are experts in your field. These reviewers will carefully read your paper and evaluate its quality, rigor, and contribution to the field. Their feedback will determine whether your paper is accepted, requires revisions, or is rejected. The peer review process is intended to be both a gatekeeping and quality control mechanism. Reviewers are looking for several key elements in a paper: a clear and compelling research question, a solid theoretical framework, a robust methodology, a thorough and unbiased analysis, and meaningful conclusions. They'll also assess the originality of your research and its relevance to the field. Knowing what reviewers are looking for can help you craft your paper in a way that meets these criteria and increases your chances of getting published. One of the first things to keep in mind is the importance of selecting the right journal for your submission. Not all journals are created equal, and it's important to choose a journal that aligns with the focus and scope of your research. Start by identifying journals that regularly publish articles on topics similar to yours. Look at the types of studies they publish, the methodologies they favor, and the theoretical perspectives they emphasize. Submitting your paper to a journal that's a good fit for your research can significantly increase your chances of success. Once you've selected a journal, take the time to carefully read the submission guidelines. Each journal will have its own set of requirements regarding formatting, length, referencing style, and submission procedures. Following these guidelines to the letter is crucial. Many papers are rejected simply because they don't adhere to the journal's submission requirements. Pay attention to details like word limits, citation styles, and the structure of your paper. If the journal requires a cover letter or an abstract, make sure these elements are carefully crafted and clearly convey the significance of your research. After you've submitted your paper, the waiting begins. The peer review process can take anywhere from a few weeks to several months, depending on the journal and the availability of reviewers. During this time, it's important to be patient and to understand that this process is meant to ensure the quality and integrity of academic research. If your paper is sent back with comments and requests for revisions, don't be discouraged. This is a normal part of the process, and it's an opportunity to improve your work. Let's discuss how to handle reviewer feedback. Receiving feedback from reviewers can be a nerve-wracking experience, especially if the comments are critical. However, it's important to remember that peer review is meant to be constructive. Reviewers are experts in your field who are there to help you strengthen your research. When you receive feedback, take the time to read it carefully and consider it objectively. If the reviewers have pointed out weaknesses in your paper, see these as opportunities to improve your work rather than as personal criticisms. One effective way to approach revisions is to create a response letter that addresses each of the reviewer's comments point by point. In this letter, you should acknowledge the feedback, explain how you've addressed each comment in your revised paper, and provide justifications for any areas where you've chosen not to make changes. This shows the reviewers that you've taken their feedback seriously and that you're committed to producing high-quality research. Let's say one of the reviewers suggests that you need to include additional literature to support your arguments. In your response letter, you might write something like, Reviewer 2 suggested incorporating more recent studies on X. We have added references to the following studies published in the last 3 years, which have been integrated into the discussion section to strengthen our analysis. By doing this, you're not only showing that you've made the necessary revisions, but also highlighting how those revisions have improved the overall quality of your paper. Another common scenario is when reviewers suggest methodological changes. For example, they might question the sample size you used or the statistical methods you employed. In such cases, it's important to carefully consider whether the suggested changes are feasible and whether they will indeed enhance your study. If you agree with the reviewer, you should implement the changes and explain in your response letter how you've done so. If you believe the suggested changes are not necessary or would not be appropriate for your study, you need to provide a clear and reasoned explanation in your response letter. It's also important to note that sometimes reviewers may disagree with each other. One reviewer might suggest adding more qualitative analysis, while another might recommend focusing solely on quantitative data. In such cases, it's up to you to make an informed decision about how to proceed. You might choose to find a middle ground that addresses both concerns, or you might decide to prioritize one set of feedback over the other. In your response letter, explain your rationale for the decisions you've made and make sure to justify your approach based on your research objectives and the goals of your study. Let's not forget about the emotional aspect of receiving feedback. It's normal to feel defensive or disappointed when you receive critical comments, especially if you've put a lot of time and effort into your paper. However, it's important to keep your emotions in check and approach the feedback with an open mind. Remember that the goal of peer review is to improve your work, and even the most critical feedback can be valuable if it helps you produce a stronger, more rigorous study. Another key aspect of navigating the peer review process is timeliness. When you receive a request for revisions, it's important to respond promptly. Journals often provide a deadline for submitting revised manuscripts, and it's crucial to meet this deadline to keep the publication process on track. If you need more time to complete the revisions, communicate with the journal's editor as soon as possible to request an extension. Most editors are understanding of the time constraints researchers face, but it's important to keep them informed and to respect their timelines. In addition to responding to reviewer feedback, it's also important to keep an open line of communication with the journal's editor. If you're unclear about any of the reviewer's comments, don't hesitate to reach out to the editor for clarification. They can provide guidance on how to interpret the feedback and how to prioritize revisions. Maintaining a professional and respectful relationship with the editor can also help you navigate the peer review process more smoothly. Once you've submitted your revised paper, the reviewers will assess your revisions and decide whether your paper is ready for publication. If the reviewers are satisfied with the changes you've made, your paper may be accepted for publication. However, it's also possible that the reviewers will request further revisions or that the paper will be rejected. If your paper is rejected, it's important not to be discouraged. Rejection is a common part of the academic publishing process, and it doesn't mean that your research isn't valuable. Instead, take the feedback you've received, revise your paper accordingly, and consider submitting it to another journal. Let's talk about how to increase your chances of getting published. One of the most effective ways to improve your chances of success in the peer review process is to seek feedback from colleagues and mentors before you submit your paper. Sharing your draft with others in your field can help you identify any weaknesses or gaps in your research, and their feedback can help you make revisions before your paper goes to peer review. This can save you time and effort in the long run, as your paper will be stronger when it's first submitted. Another strategy is to stay informed about the latest research in your field. Peer reviewers are often looking for papers that contribute new insights or approaches to existing debates, so it's important to demonstrate that your research is up to date and relevant. Make sure you're familiar with the latest literature in your area of study, and consider how your research can build on or challenge these recent developments. Being aware of the current state of the field can also help you identify the best journals to submit your work to. Finally, let's not forget the importance of resilience in the peer review process. The road to publication can be long and challenging, with many ups and downs along the way. Rejections and revisions are a normal part of the process, and it's important to stay motivated and persistent. Keep refining your work, seeking feedback, and submitting your research until you achieve your goal of publication. Remember that every piece of feedback, whether positive or negative, is an opportunity to improve your research and grow as a scholar. And that brings us to the end of today's episode on navigating the peer review process. The journey from submission to publication can be complex and challenging, but with the right strategies and mindset, you can successfully navigate this process and see your research published in academic journals. Remember, peer review is not just about getting published. It's about improving your work and contributing to the advancement of knowledge in your field. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Dissertation in 90 Days. I hope you found these insights helpful and that you're feeling more confident as you prepare to submit your research for publication. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. Share this podcast with your fellow grad students and researchers who might also benefit from these tips. And as always, I encourage you to connect with our Grad Mentor Network for more resources and support. Stay persistent, keep refining your research, and don't let the challenges of the peer review process deter you from achieving your goals. Until next time, keep pushing forward and stay focused on your academic journey. I'm Dr. J, signing off. Goodbye.